I've had the great fortune in my career to have worked and advised many chief risk officers of large financial institutions around the world. And given that financial services is all about taking risk, these chief risk officers are some of the most intelligent and deep thinking individuals I know. Allow me to give you a glimpse of my time with two such talented CROs so that you too can think like a chief risk officer. Hi, I'm Bruce Choi. Over my decades in professional risk management, I've worked for and advised chief risk officers of some of the largest banks and financial institutions in the world. In the first of a series of Think Like videos, let me give you a glimpse of what goes through the minds of these leaders. In this video, I'll talk to you about two chief risk officers I've had the great pleasure of knowing. First, Mick Leonard, former chief risk officer of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and Daniel Moore, the current chief risk officer of Scotiabank. Both of these banks are massive, trillion-dollar balance sheets with extensive international operations. The risks they face are wide-ranging and global in nature. I worked as a direct report of Mick's back in the early 2000s. Mick was one of the longest-serving chief risk officers of the Commonwealth Bank's history. The way he thought was highly influential in my own career. Number 1. Comprehensive systems thinking. One of the first things I recall from working with Mick was his systems thinking. Not only did he understand how things were connected, but the way he was able to extrapolate to second, third, even fourth order effects. Whenever Mick looked at something, he did it comprehensively. No rock was ever left unturned, his attention to detail was unparalleled. We could start talking off about a single transaction, and would end up finding some unintended consequence as a part of a chain of events or processes that might happen down the track. This type of systems thinking led to foresight. Role-playing, testing out scenarios was part of the way we did business. It ensured that risk processes and contingencies were built for a variety of future situations. Number 2, good governance. The second highlight I recall from the way Mick thought about things was from a good governance perspective. Whatever we did was put into the framework of culture, policy, empowerment, and oversight. For perspective, the bank had over 60,000 full-time employees, and without doubt one of its key strengths was empowering all of those to innovate and optimize what was under their control. With such scale, an authoritative command and control regime would not bring out the best in the organisation. Prior to working with Mick, I'd come from a line function. Moving into an enterprise role under Mick, looking after multiple legal entities and businesses, I was introduced to the leverage effect of culture and policy in that special way of thinking to manage to scale. Continuing on from culture, I'm yet a sidebar to a thinking of that didn't come directly from Mick, but from a meeting where I joined Mick in very early in my tenure with the Commonwealth Bank. At the end of this meeting, this executive, David, in polite chit-chat asked me about joining the bank. I confessed I was still feeling a little fish out of water, mentioning how my background was not in finance, but my early career was as a professor in engineering. There it was easier to see what you were doing. You were moulding young high schoolers into professionals, or you were converting crude into gasoline. David then gave me his view on how without the bank, everyone would be out in Martin Place, that's Australia's Wall Street, those with extra capital yelling out to try and find people with investment ideas to match exactly with their investment risk, and just how inefficient that would be. The bank's role was the efficient transfer of capital, and it affects the livelihoods and the health of the nation. As a banker, you help families into homes, you help capitalise small businesses, and even with the large institutional deals, you're building that highway to a community. I saw that way of thinking with all my fellow senior executives at the Commonwealth Bank, and this was certainly role modelled by Mick. A strong purpose of nation building permeated all our thinking. Before moving on from Mick, it'd be remiss of me not to point out a unique trait of his that was less about thinking but was more about doing. Mick took old school pride of working harder than everyone else. He was always first in the office, he was often last to leave, and worked like a machine. And I think everyone who worked with him would certainly recall this. Dr. Daniel Moore from Scotiabank has helped me out in the past 3 years in promoting UN's International Literacy Week. He is the current Chief Risk Officer of Scotiabank, Canada's third largest bank, and one known for its international footprint, being a key player in the South American market and the provider of essential financial services to parts of the Caribbean. Let me show you a clip from one of his promotions. I'm here with Daniel Moore, Chief Risk Officer of Scotiabank, and once again we're here to celebrate International Literacy Day. Now Daniel, I know that reading and being curious is a very important attribute for you. How do you actually nurture this learning within yourself and those that you support?
Yeah, Bruce, thanks. Look, I think one of the important learnings of this pandemic era is that we don't know what we don't know. And continuous learning is so important so we can adapt and be agile to the circumstances we have around us. And reading is an important part of that continuous learning, I believe. It keeps us curious, keeps us informed, it keeps us humble in our opinions. When you're reading, you can take perspectives of others, you can think more rationally, and we can always learn from others around us. And learning, curiosity, that humility that comes with that engenders trust, because it opens you up to a diversity of opinions. Diversity, we know, is so important, and ultimately gives you better decision-making in fast-moving circumstances.
So one of the things that you do over in Scotiabank is you put out a regular reading list. So what have you got on your hit list at the moment?
Yeah, well, I brought up a few things. First of all, I've always got this with me. It's simple, it's easy. If I'm going somewhere quickly, I can just throw it in the bag, and it's got dozens of books on it. It's wonderful. This one came from the bedside table. It's called, if you can see that, Linked by Barabasi. It's about how our networks run everything that we do these days, from how the internet works to how viruses spread. I've got The World's Banker here, which is an old book about the World Bank and how it helps developing economies that are going through trying times. That one's on the to-read list, actually, to reread. And I've got a couple of books here on prediction, one by Nate Silver and the other called Super Prediction. And these are on the to-read list. And I love having a stock of books that's always in the in queue to read. And sometimes I read all of them. Sometimes I read parts and move on to the next one. I love reading about AI and machine learning. There's so much innovation happening right now, Bruce. I also think, you need to take every opportunity that you have around you to read.
Daniel's thinking, to me, feels similar to that of PE investors. The way in which Daniel gets up to speed and be ready for the ever-changing future is essential to keep on top of his big portfolio. A scholar by training, having completed his PhD at Oxford University, his humility and curiosity to keep on learning is a competitive advantage that we all should aspire to. Let's have a look at a further clip. So I must say, it's an interesting time to be a risk manager at the moment. What would be your advice to risk managers in this unprecedented time?
But it comes back, I think, to those two values. It's curiosity and humility, in your opinion, because we all have clearly so much to learn. We thought in January, we didn't think anything like this was going to happen in January. In March, we thought we'd all be coming out of lockdown. Look, here we are, Bruce, talking to each other from our homes over a Zoom chat. I think the banks have performed remarkably well through this period. We got a good handle on our credit risk, but also the resiliency we've shown in operational risks and cyber risk and reputational risk as we've dealt with many of our customers' challenges through this period. And if you go back 10, 15 years, those risks weren't even on a risk manager's radar. So now they're part of the panoply of things we need to worry about. And it's that curiosity, always trying to anticipate what could be out there that we don't know about, that's critical. And be a continuous learner, because the world is so rich, there is so much to know, and there are so many platforms and resources out there to learn from.
That curiosity, anticipating what could be out there, and how the panoply of risks are always changing. Asking questions, being a continuous learner, all great insights in the way the Chief Risk Officer thinks. To see the full interview, including Daniel's suggested reading list, click on the link up here. And don't forget to subscribe in the video down below. I personally feel the common trait here is critical thinking. Having known Mick for decades and Daniel more recently, the common trait of these two CROs is the way they can critically think through an issue. They cut through the noise and get to the heart of the matter. Well, there you have it, a glimpse into the thinking of two of the world's top Chief Risk Officers. As a closing comment from me, many who have known me have heard me say that risk management is a perishable skill. It's a skill that without continuous learning and forward thinking, you will fall behind. Hopefully you've picked up a few tips on how to think like a CRO. continuous learning about what's coming up next in a very structured way. This will help make sure that you and your organisation will be future ready.